Hi, everybody. I am very excited for our guest today, named Katharina. And one of the reasons that this is a special interview is that we are both actually in a service game group together. And so that's how we initially even met before the AJC officially started. And that's what brings us here, these interviews that I'm doing where I'm interviewing fellow members of the AJC to find out what are the things that they do to generate conversations, to create clients, to fill their practice that has worked most successfully for them. So, Katharina, I'm excited to be here with you. And yeah, if you could introduce just who you are, what you do, let's start there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I have been coaching for 2 years, and my background is that I used to work in marketing, so I've been in the corporate world, and then I ran my own bar fitness studios, which is like a blend of yoga, ballet, and Pilates. And about sort of 2.5 years ago, I got into coaching initially by being coached myself, and I had been coached before, to be honest, probably a decade before. But I think the first time that I was really open to it and I really experienced the power of it myself. So I got certified as a life coach, and since then have been doing more trainings and different courses and things. Um, and when I started out as a coach, I had my fitness network to sort of organically grow my coaching business as well. But I also had my network from other jobs that I've worked at in the corporate world. I'm originally from Germany. I now live in England with my husband and two kids. So I have a network in Germany that even know me from back in the day, from university, from my first couple of work experiences. Um, and then now I also have a network of other mums. So my kids are now 8 and 10. So I'm very involved here in the local community. Um, so yeah, yeah. I guess when I first launched my coaching business, I just let everyone know that this is what I do now, and I wasn't shy about it. I guess there's always a lot of coaches experience this um, bit of a fear of putting themselves out there first time around, saying I used to be this and now I'm this. Like I used to be a fitness studio owner, now I'm a life coach. So yeah, I experienced a little bit of that, but I found that when I told people about it, a lot of people actually said that makes so much sense. Like knowing who you are, that doesn't surprise us at all. And yeah, really excited to see, what you're doing now and how you're gonna, next steps you're gonna take. So yeah, I want to say that my business has organically grown just from different networks that I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing your background and, your experiences of life that have helped form a lot of these different networks. Because in some of the conversations that I've had, people do talk about, right, making sure that people know what you're up to, sharing what you do or the way in which you help people. And I think what's really special about the way that you're sharing it is I think sometimes when people listen to this idea of how do I generate conversations or what's the way in which I create clients, they often don't think that some of those things are networks or connections. And so I really love how you talked about how you lived in Germany and then you moved and you're also a mom, so you have different moms that you're connected with, and it just really goes to show that there's so many people that we connect with throughout our life that sometimes we may either dismiss the idea that they could become a client because we know them, or that they might have a connection that we're just unaware of. And so I think what you're speaking about is really powerful for someone listening to even go back through their life and to say, what are the places that I've been? Who am I connected to? what are the activities that I'm up to and the people there. And so thank you so much for even opening with that. And I'm curious because it sounds like you have had a background in business and marketing, and then you transitioned into coaching. And what's the way in which you let people know that you made this transition, or what you were up to? I know you said you let them know. What's the way in which you sort of broadcast that, or introduce people to this?
The first thing I did as I was going through my life coaching training, I posted on Instagram, sort of like an announcement of, you know, hi everyone, I'm really excited, although a little nervous to share that I am currently training as a life coach. And I was actually looking for pro bono clients at the time as part of my training. So I posted about that and explained a little bit about what happens in a coaching session. That was the very first time I came out of the closet, so to speak. Um, and it was actually really great because I managed to there was a lot of interest for these pro bono coaching sessions, which was, first of all, I was surprised, and I mean positively surprised. I was quite overwhelmed by how many people contacted me about the pro bono sessions, and sometimes it was like, um, mainly they were like not super close friends, but like people I know, or sometimes like a friend of a friend, and some people also like referred me to a friend. And what happened was that I then got my first pro bono clients, and from there my first paying clients, because at some point I decided to charge. So I felt like I never officially had to like launch my business, because it just happened organically. Whereas I know some other coaches that I trained with at the time, they were afraid of making that announcement. They were like, no, I've got to be perfect first, before I can tell the world what I do. And for their training, they only sort of used people in their circle of trust, which may have been other coaches, or which may have been, I don't know, like a family member, but they didn't actually put it out there into the world. So from there, it kind of developed organically that I got my first two of my pro bono clients, then became paying clients, and then one referred me to a sister, I remember at the time. Um, and yeah, it sort of grew from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like a couple things are being highlighted in my mind. One is by making this announcement, you're letting people know, what you're up to, the ways in which you can help them. Because if you don't, they'll never know. And similarly, you were willing to do it. Sometimes I've heard people say this phrase, right? Doing it afraid, or doing it imperfectly, that you were actually honest about it, right? Even though you were a little nervous, opening up, right? People that you're serving them through this pro bono work, and starting in that way. And so it sounds like people really gravitated towards that, this idea of even being helped, or that there was a possibility for a conversation. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, they really did. They really did. And I think 'cause people already knew me as a person, and they've seen me. They see the way I work. They see the way I am with people. So there's already a level of trust there, right? And I think the biggest mistake that coaches make in the beginning is look outside of the network, thinking I've got to find people that don't know me yet, instead of seeing what's right in front of them, that they actually have a huge network. And what I did in the beginning, I literally just went through all the contacts in my phone. I went through my emails, I went through my Facebook contacts, my Instagram contacts, and I just started reaching out to people to connect and just have a conversation. And and being a bit active on social media, posting about what I'm up to. I think that's also a good way to sort of support that, because when people see that already know you, it just sort of allows them to be part of your journey and see your growth. And yeah, I never had this sort of aspiration that I needed to be perfect before I start. um and I think that really helped me, because if you wait to be ready, you're never going to feel ready, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when you were going through these, let's say it's contacts, whether it's in your phone, LinkedIn, or Facebook, whatever it might be, what is the way in which you approach these people? Because obviously, right, you want to come from a place of sincerity. It's not from a place of, hey, I'm coaching, pay me, right? Nobody wants that. That doesn't work. What's the way in which you approached even maybe bridging conversations with people that you hadn't spoken to in a while?
Yeah, it was literally just asking to have a catch up, to see what they're up to in life. And sometimes it might have been someone I hadn't spoken to for a while, but I saw that they had a new job or they moved somewhere else, and it was nothing other than connecting. And they would tell me about what they're up to, and I would tell them about what I'm up to. And that was it. And sometimes that would lead to further conversations, or sometimes it just meant that they knew what I was up to. And when they have someone in their network that is looking for a coach, they might think of me simply because I'm a person that they trust. But apart from reaching out to people like that, I also just put myself out in my local community a lot, through teaching my bar classes. Still, I'm constantly seeing people, and there'd be conversations before or after class. They'd be asking me, oh, I see that you're a coach now. What does that mean? Or what do you do now? How does that work? And sometimes there'd be situations where after a class it was just maybe like one person left, that everyone else had gone, and we would have a deeper conversation just after class. And they would start asking me, and they'd tell me, oh, I you know they're maybe going through something. Or some one person I remember telling me she's had therapy before, and she said, oh, it didn't really help me. I feel like maybe it's coaching with someone that I really know and I really trust, like you, that might really help me. So I said, of course, sure, let's have a conversation. So these things happened organically. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I've got kids, and I've got a network of people that I see through the kids, whether that's mums at school, whether that's at the local tennis club, whether that's dropping my daughter off at her dance classes. Um, yeah, it's just, and we live in a fairly small town, village, so to speak. So even when I'm going to the grocery store, I'm bumping into people, and I'm just having a catch up. And I think the difference is that when people ask you, how are you, or what are you up to, that you actually say it, that you actually talk about yourself. Because we can easily, um, just say, oh, I'm fine, how are you? But just be confident that the person actually does want to know about you. And
Yes.
yeah.
Wow, this is wonderful. And there's two things that are really sticking out for me here. One is you're talking about really being up to things in life, right? Living your life, connecting with people, whether it's that you're teaching a class, or whether it's that you're involved with the things that your kids are doing. You're uh, really up to things in life and connecting with people, different than some of the people you might have described earlier that are kind of keeping to themselves, trying to have something be perfect before they let other people know. Whereas what I'm hearing is that as you're a coach, you're a coach wherever you go, right? That it's just who you are. It's what you do. It's not that you're trying to convince somebody of coaching, but you're just showing up as you are and who you are in your profession, wherever you are. Um, so I'm hearing that, and I'm also hearing on the other side of this, which I really love, is this idea, right, of asking people how they are. And I think that's funny because I live in a smaller area as well, and I bump into people, and so I always find it funny when I might see a video online where they say, "Oh, don't ask people how are you? Ask something different." I'm like, I actually love the question, "How are you?" because I'm sincerely interested in the other person, and when someone asks me, I answer honestly. So I love these two things. Um, I saw that you smiled a bit when I said you're a coach wherever you go. Um, yeah, could you at least that's what I kind of got from what you were sharing in terms of living a life and being up to things. Could you speak a little more on that? And maybe you have a different context of what it means to just be a coach with whomever you're with. But yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Mm. I think a big part of that is active listening. I didn't really understand that before I did my coach training. I think I always considered myself a good listener, but I think when you go through your coach training, or at least the one I did, we learned that it's okay to sometimes just have a pause in a conversation and just see if there's something else that they might want to say. And I think also in social situations where we're conditioned to believe that we have to fill the gaps, or also that we have to give like feedback or advice. I think, or sometimes when someone shares something, we feel that we then have to share something like that we feel that we've had the same experience or that we feel the same. And sometimes it's just too quick, where even if someone says to me, "Oh, I'm not feeling well, I have a cold," if I then go and say, "Oh, yeah, I've had a cold last week, oh, yeah, it's terrible," then I'm taking the focus off of them and putting the focus on me. So I've really learned to just say nothing and just nod my head and just be with them. And you'd be surprised how much actually they have to say, and how seen and heard they feel. And I don't think people get that much in their daily lives. And you know even from our partners, because we're busy with work and kids and everything, to have someone that actually truly listens to you, I think that's really rare. So that is probably the main thing that has changed for me since I've started coaching, is that I've become a different kind of listener, and I really really pay attention to what people say. And if there's something that they say where I see an opportunity to coach them, or or I want to say share some feedback or ask a question, a small thing that they might say, then I might pick up on that and do that. And that's probably something that I wouldn't have done in the past, and that doesn't happen in like normal small talk. Even if someone talks about, let's say, their work and life, and then they might share, oh yeah, I've just got to get through this project and it's really stressful, and once I'm through this project, everything will be so much better. And I might share something like, would you be open to the idea that everything could be better now? you know yeah, it's things like that,
Wow.
really.
Yeah, which I think are really very powerful, especially yeah, I think it's very powerful, especially with this idea of the listening, because sometimes, especially if someone's new into coaching, sometimes they can be quick to want to give advice or recommendations. And so I love what you're sharing, because I think often in these different networks in our day to day, as we're connecting with people, like you're speaking about, especially when we're live in person, there is so much that somebody could say, and so it's almost as though there's the first layer, kind of like the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more underneath that, that like you're saying, when you give that room to share, or you simply nod your head as a response, and that space stays open for them to share the next thing that that most people in their life are only dealing with the surface level, or simply kind of on autopilot. And so the fact that you're able to be so present creates a powerful experience. And I'm also hearing that you're willing to um, ask questions that perhaps have them thinking a different way, not that their thinking is wrong, but almost inviting them to a higher level of being, or that things could be different. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think a lot of people are stuck in their thinking, and I say that with a lot of empathy because I've been there myself, being in maybe a bit of a victim mindset, or thinking things are a certain way, and just really truly believing that you can't change anything about it, although you can. And sometimes just a little shift in thinking can help people feel more empowered. So I mean, that's really what happens in coaching for me. It's the whether that's inside a official session or outside of a session, it's um, really hearing somebody and then opening them up to new possibilities by just shifting their thinking ever so slightly, and then they'll have an insight, and ideally they might take an action based on that insight.
Wow. I love that phrase that you just used of being stuck in their thinking. Because I imagine it's something that, like you said, we've all experienced, or a lot of us have experienced. I know I have as well. And we can witness someone, stuck in their thinking, and oftentimes on repeat. And this idea, right, that by actually saying something, you're introducing an opportunity for them to almost shift their thinking without even having an answer. It's almost as though their thinking is maybe on one track, and opening the idea of it moving somewhere else, that it allows them to see stuff that they didn't see before. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously that happens in coaching. And so it sounds like the way that you do this with people, and I'm just thinking of someone that, they have people close to them, or there's people that they're interacting with, and maybe they've noticed that someone is stuck in their thinking, and maybe they're just going, oh, well, that this is how this person is, or this is what they're dealing with. It sounds like for you, that's almost your prompt to ask them a question, rather than just leaving the person there, or designating them as, well, that's just how they think. um, you you're taking a different approach. It almost sounds like I guess, what's your thinking behind it? Because I do notice some people that might just go, well, that's just how that person is. And it sounds like you're not pushing back, but there's almost a thinking that you have that allows you, or has allowed you, to almost challenge them in some ways. What's the way that you think of that? Because sometimes if someone's stuck in their thinking, they're very much in the thought, or that belief.
Hmm.
What's the thinking that, or the thinking of your approach that allows you almost the courage to say, well, I'm going to say something different here?
Hmm. Um, I think you just really test the waters by just gently nudging them in a new direction. And obviously, there will be people that don't want to hear it. There might be people that just want to vent. So you have those people, but I like to be open to the possibility that they do want to, hear about a different way of seeing things. Um, you might ask something like, would you like to hear some feedback about this, or may I offer something that I see, or do you just want to be heard, or do you just want to vent at the moment, which is also totally fine with me. So depending on the kind of relationship that you have with them, you might even just very directly ask them that, or you just um or just by asking questions just gently, you kind of find out where they're at. And if there's a level of openness, then I might actually quite quickly invite them into a coaching conversation, because I then feel like, okay, I would love to dig deeper with that person, but I want to create a container for that, and I don't want to do it on the street or in the cafe, or wherever we are when this is happening, or even if it's just a half-hour call on Zoom where we're meant to be connecting with each other. I think I do like to create the container around it, so they understand what is happening, and what is actually the purpose of this conversation. So I do like to then create a container for it. So I think that gives me the permission, if I once I invite someone into a coaching conversation, and before we start, I do provide a bit of context about confidentiality, and the fact that everything they say to me stays between us, and how this can only work when they're really open and honest with me. So I think it does help, once you've created that setting, to then really dig a little bit deeper. But you're not going to know, you're not going to know unless you ask. So when you're with people socially, or just having these connect conversations, you've just got to test the waters and see where they're at.
Right. Wow, this is so good because, I picture someone listening to this and we're talking about, being imperfect, connecting with your network, letting them know what you're up to, the things that you can help with, and catching up. And also living into life, right? Be participating in life, being involved in things. And I love how we're talking about conversations, because there's so many different experiences that we have with people. Relationships are those things that happen in a lot of different ways. It's very dynamic, and so like you said, you don't know until you ask, or testing the waters, and really creating that opportunity for real conversations, not surface level small talk conversations, but actually getting to know someone, understanding what's happening for them. And so these are things that you have done that have allowed you to create clients. And I think this is wonderful. And so right now in your practice, are there main things that you help people with, or is it more broad and based on the conversations? Yeah, I'm curious where you're at now, because we learned about a lot about your background. What are the main things that you're up to now?
Mm. Yeah, so I work with women, and I especially love working with female entrepreneurs. Some women I work with work in the corporate world. A lot of them are trying to kind of reinvent themselves, and a lot of them have also children. And often when you have kids, you have to step back a little bit for a while in your career. But then maybe when the kids are just that little bit older, it's the time to really reassess what you want to do with your life. And those are the types of women I really love to work with. So figure out what are they passionate about, and what do they want to create in their lives. And because everyone's got something, right? It's just about, you know people often say, yeah, well, if I had all the money in the world, or if I couldn't fail, I would do this, whatever it is, open up a restaurant or anything. And then they say, oh, but I don't think I can do that, or I would fail, or what are people going to think? So it's about empowering them to be able to do those things. But yeah, so those are the kinds of people I like to work with. And in terms of creating conversations, so what I mentioned earlier to you was what I was doing in the first year of my coaching, but now I also create conversations through a few other things that I've done the last sort of 6 months that have worked well for me. So one is my events that I run. I run these events called Mind Body Reset, where I teach a class that is a combination of ballet, bar, and yoga. And then we go into a relaxation, maybe a visualization, and then a group coaching session where I might have them do an exercise and then share and then go into a bit of coaching. And then at the end, there's a breakfast. So there's also a space to socialize. And then I give people a voucher for a session with me at the end. And obviously, these are often people that know me in a different capacity. They might know me as a fitness instructor, but they might not know me as a coach yet. So that's a way for them to get to know me as a coach, and then they might feel more comfortable actually going into a coaching session because they understand a little bit more what it's all about. Because some people also are afraid of opening up. For some people, it's more accessible or less scary to be part of a group than to do a one-to-one. And I've also run other groups. I've run groups online, like group coaching programs where the fee to take part is lower than one-to-one. So that's one reason people might do it. And also because some people just prefer being in a group, I think they just, I don't know why, they just have this hesitation of being in a one-to-one situation. But everyone's different. There's other people that are the opposite. They'd be like, oh, I'd never be in a group. I just want to do a one-to-one. But the groups have been a way of creating one-to-one clients. Yeah, and lately recently I did this sort of referral program where, not really a program, but I created a voucher that I gave all my existing clients to share with their with 3 people each in their network, and that is a gift voucher for 90-minute coaching session that explains how powerful coaching is, and the voucher basically says, this has been gifted to you by a friend who cares about your journey, and it makes it creates a container. It basically makes it feel more special, more valuable than just saying to someone, "Hey, would you refer me to a friend?" or just keep me in mind when you talk to your friends. But to actually have the voucher that explains it all, I found that actually quite effective, because people have then actually thought, "Oh, who do I have that I could give this to? This is really special. This is like a really special gift." So yeah, that's one of the things that's worked well for me too.
Wow, that's wonderful, and I love how you're talking about the experimentation of testing different things, such as the events and the vouchers that you're doing. And so it sounds like as you're experimenting, I'm almost getting the sense that you've chosen to test things that seem very meaningful and in alignment with you and your own interests in the things that you do. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think testing, experimenting, those are the key words here, because there's no one way of running a coaching business. And there are certain things that might work well for me that don't work well for others at all. Um, so you just never know until you try, right? Um, I think that's one of the things when you first start a business. Um, I think for me, it actually really helped me that I'd run my own business before, because I already knew that there's no blueprint, and that you've just got to try things, and that you are going to have your ups and downs, and you're going to make adjustments. And my first business, running my bar fitness studio, was also very much a relationship business. It was about building relationships and testing different marketing activities, and it was very much about reaching out to people who'd been before, and maybe just sending an email and say, "Oh, I've not seen you for a while," and finding ways of getting them back into the studio, getting them excited again. But mainly funny enough, that business was mainly grew by word of mouth. However much marketing we invested in, and it was always word of mouth. So we actually quite quickly learned that's what we focus on, is the relationships. So that was my fitness business, and I think a lot of the things I learned was transferable to my coaching business now. The focus on relationships, and the fact that you've got to experiment and try things and not be afraid of failing, and also not be afraid of rejection. And when there is so-called rejection or resistance or no's coming your way, that it's got nothing to do with you. And when you are the one delivering the service, as you do in coaching, and as I also did in my studio where I was delivering the classes, you can easily think that that's got to do with you when someone doesn't want to come to your sessions anymore, or doesn't want your coaching. But it's just not like that. There could be 100 reasons. It's always something that they've got going on in their lives, and it's not that you've done something wrong. And I think that's something a lot of coaches struggle with, that they make it about them when it's really not about us. And what helps me here is, I mean, I know I'm not always going to be liked by everyone. I mean, that's just normal, that's just natural. But what helps me is when I take the focus off of my insecurities and put the focus on them and on serving them. And then it doesn't matter what I've got going on in here, um, or let's say up here rather. It doesn't matter what I've got, the thinking that I've got going on. Um, it's all about doing what serves them and delivering a really great session for them. And when I know that I've had my focus on the client and I've done the best I could, then I know that I'm going to be at peace with that.
Yes. And wow, this is so good. There's so many things here that I'm loving, because I think especially for people that maybe haven't had businesses before, like you said, they can be maybe trying to get it perfect, or they can be concerned about failing, or the rejection. So keeping or resistance, and so keeping those terms right, testing or experimenting, and realizing that it's not personal. You're literally just testing different things, and sometimes what works with one person might not work with another person. But it's really about finding, like you were sharing, what's the what are the common things that work for you. And so for you, it sounds like you really had a sense that the building the relationships and the referrals was working really well for you, and that's also shown up in your coaching business. Now, I know you said that you do the events and vouchers, and obviously each person has their own interests, so they may do a different version of an event, or a different version of a voucher, or their own thing that's not either of those. How important was it for you, or where along the lines um, did this sense of maybe not necessarily a niche, but almost wanting to work with the people that you really kind of like an ideal client, where did that start to come into play? Because I imagine in those beginning times when it was more pro bono, it's I imagine not everyone was an ideal client. I think that's just reality, and you were probably able to help them. Where did this come along for you, that you started to have more of a sense of the type of person that you worked well with, and how do you balance that with someone else that might not be the ideal client, but you recognize that you could help? Yeah, could you speak more to that?
Yeah, I think that's something that it's probably ever evolving. So initially, I positioned myself as a coach for women, and that was only because my network is predominantly female, through the fitness, because the bar classes is something that mostly women attend, and it's like 99.9% women that used to come to the studios. And then my mum's groups, and then also from other networks. So I positioned myself as a women's coach because I knew that's where my network was. And then from there, initially I was coaching, I think, a lot of overwhelmed mums, juggling life, work, kids. And then after a while, I realized I really love coaching people that want to create something in their lives, that are not just, you know, trying to juggle the status quo and wanting techniques and, things to make the current situation better, but actually actively creating a life, whether that's through a career. Often it is through the career, but creating something in their lives that is meaningful, and actually believing that they can. um, I think after a while I realized that's the person I really love to work with, and that's how I started coaching entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, women who run small businesses. And I also feel like I have a lot to contribute there because I've run my own business before. So I probably do a little bit of a mix of coaching and mentoring there. Um, but yeah, I think sometimes I'm still trying to figure this out, but sometimes when you're in a first conversation with someone, they can be in a bit of a um be a bit set in their thinking. They can be in a bit of a victim mindset. And some people stay in that. The more you talk to them, they stay in that. But others, you can very quickly open them up and they go like, oh, wow, nobody ever asked me that before. Or, oh, you really believe I can do that? You just realize they've just never had coaching before. They've never had anyone believe in them. They've never had anyone question, because often even people have a partner, like a spouse, who also tells them they can't do things, and that's coming from wanting to protect. That's not coming from wanting to put them down. It's because they also believe they can't. So sometimes quite quickly you can, help someone. I guess you can turn someone around from victim to ownership mindset. Sometimes that can happen quickly, and with other people it takes longer. And I think most coaches ideally would like to, well, most coaches that I know ideally would like to work with people that are coachable, and that want to create something and then take the steps in their lives to move them forward. So I think, yeah, the more I'm growing as a coach, that's the direction I'm going in.
Yeah. Wow. This is great. And it sounds like it's almost through the questions and these different things that you're really getting to have a pulse on where somebody is at, to even see if they may potentially be a good client, or be even open to this idea that things could be different.
Hmm.
I'm aware, right, that we're coming to time. What would you like to leave people here with today? Or what would you like them to know as they're on this journey and they're wanting to get better at generating conversations and creating clients? What would you like them to know?
Hmm. It's a long-term game, and when you're coming from a place of wanting to serve, then you can only win, because you're serving the person in the moment, and you never know what will happen in the future, even if they're not a client right now, or even if that conversation doesn't go any further at that point in time. I've had it a number of times now that I've had a powerful conversation with somebody, and they walked away. They didn't become a client then, but they came back 6 months later and signed up for a group coaching program with me, or signed up one-to-one with me, or they came back later and said, I have a friend that I want to refer to you. So, I think as a business owner, you can sometimes have those moments where you're like, oh, I'm serving everybody. Am I wasting my time? But I just trust my intuition, as in, do I really connect with this person? Do I I think it's maybe about the chemistry, that I feel like this is someone I want to serve, and I can't really tell you why. It's a feeling that I have, like I want to serve this person, and so I use sort of my gut instinct who I want to spend more time with, because you can't just spend time with everybody. So I just use my gut instinct rather than my brain that might say, oh, they can't pay. or whatever. So yeah, just use my intuition and serve and trust trust the path and yeah, I can see that it's working.
Yeah. This was wonderful. And if anybody had more questions or they wanted to find more out about you and your work, what's the best place for them to find you or to reach you?
So they can either contact me on Facebook, Katharina Wrather, or I also have a website which is just my name, katarinarather.com. Yeah, those are. I'm also on Instagram, but yeah, either one of those is probably easiest. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure that I put those in the description for this. Um, and for anyone listening, if you have any questions for me, you can reach me at jmwhiteman.com. And thank you, Katharina. And for anyone listening, let us know what was most helpful here for you. What stood out to you? And let us know, because this is how we know we're making a difference. This is what allows us to answer any questions that you have. And so, thank you, Katharina, and thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you later. Bye.